Hi Griffin Scopers, lovely to see you back in the sound booth with me once again. So today we are back on the tarot and we are going to do the soul birth cards of Prince Harry. So millions and squillions and trillions of tarot readers have covered Harry, including myself on my old channel. I covered him and his wife for many years, but this reading has not been covered. It's completely different, and we're going to go right into the heart and the soul and the purpose of why Prince Harry came into this world. The energies that I'm going to be looking at will not change for him from birth through till death, and they're going to be swirling around his life the whole time that he's here in the 3D on Earth. So guys, if that's something that interests you, then stick around. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. That always helps keep the content coming out to you. And without further ado, let's get into it. Let's give the energies a little cleanse. These are sticky energies to work with, so let's clean it up a little bit. Okay. So it must be about a year and a half, actually, since I last covered Harry. Let's pan the camera down and see what we've got. So we are starting with, as part of his character card set, because we get 2 cards for the character cards, and he is a hermit to start with. He's a Virgo, so he relates to the hermit card. Now, when you think about how he grew up in the royal household, this would have meant constant scrutiny for Prince Harry. And instead of fully embracing responsibility, the hermit shows that Harry is retreating. Retreating from obligations, which could be seen as avoidance rather than actual retreat into wisdom, which is one of the life lessons of the hermit. You know, coming away from the flopsome and the jetsam of the world and going into kind of like a silent retreat, which makes one feel more whole. We could all do with a little bit of this from time to time. So stepping back from royal life, his departure from royal duties is classic hermit behavior, yet he lives in enormous privilege. Excuse me. And his retreat seems to be much more like a focused kind of rebellion, rather than, you know, a retreat into enlightenment, serenity, this kind of thing. It's marked much more by an exile, conflict, rejection, and, you know, estrangement. So the hermit's lantern is the symbol for its enlightenment, and he's kind of like put himself into a bubble, separating himself from tradition, family and friends. His friends have spoken out in the past about the closer he got to his wife, the more they felt like they were losing his friendship. And here with Prince Harry, we see that the hermit is much more in its shadow state, or its shadow form. So not quite the wise sage, but much more of an isolated figure, cut off, resentful, and at times actually quite self-righteous, I would say. So Harry is often, or has often, positioned himself as a little bit of a truth teller and reformer, instead of his hermit's kind of withdrawal looking like, I said, you know, wisdom. It looks much more like bitterness and alienation, or being lost in his own kind of narrative. So traditionally, the hermit would embrace silence, and Harry's shadow hermit's energy kind of shows an inability to remain silent. So think about the kind of memoirs that he's put out, the interviews, the public revelations, this kind of thing. And the hermit in the shadow state can become a little bit of a preacher, shouting from the wilderness, holding, that lantern up, not in a humble way, but in a way that kind of blinds other people rather than guides them forward. So the Hermit card is about soul searching. And for Harry, this manifests in his lifelong struggle with his identity. He's kind of caught between royal obligation and freedom, not quite ever finding his grounding, always searching, and often through quite dramatic breaks and upheavals in his life. And it's the opposite of doing that steady work that the hermit needs to do in order to gain that enlightenment in wisdom. So instead of detachment and clarity, it comes much more across as like he's burning bridges, rebelling without necessarily knowing what the alternative structure and wisdom is. So Harry's life experience and life lessons will relate to all of the nines, because the hermit governs the number 9 in the tarot. And so Harry will relate to the 9 of Wands here, literally, I feel, because this is a card of a military person. And, he's got a military background and a lifelong role as the spare. And that's made him not only a soldier in combat, but also in the media battlefield. I was going to say in the media world, but it is a bit of a battlefield for him. So the cards wounded figure here, because we've got some feathers that have been lost, some battle scars along the way, is not a broken figure, but he still stands guard, being defensive, always braced is Harry for another attack, carrying his grudges and expecting another conflict to surface rather than going for that inner peace of the hermit. So his life has been steeped in themes as well of mental illness and struggles. He's spoken out openly many times about his panic attacks and trauma. Panic attacks is something that particularly goes with this card, and therapy, etc. And the 9 of Swords kind of is like the Midnight Terrors card, if you will. So it's kind of like exactly the shadow that haunts him. Think about the grief over Diana, the estrangement over the family, the anger over the media scandals. And this card is Harry's kind of restless mind, unable to escape the shadows of both the palace and the press. And, it shows his struggle perfectly. So the 9 of Cups, this would be a card of wish fulfillment. And at first glance, you can see that all the cups are full of various different bits and bops, and it looks a little bit like a feast. You've got the keys to the kingdom here as well. But Harry's achieved the wish fulfillment life, okay, in some ways. Privilege, wealth, independence, family abroad, all this. But the 9 of Cups also has a shadow. So it can feel a little bit smug, like the person is being self-indulgent and hollow. They lack substance. So when the fulfillment lacks spiritual depth, can't get my words out today, glitches and all, guys. when the figure here, when the figure lacks the spiritual depth of the hermit, yes, they can appear a little bit hollow, shallow even, and smug. Indulgence, yeah. So critics, I would say, as well, as have often cast Harry's Californian lifestyle as this card's excesses. You know, he's got too much. You're enjoying the comfort while you're still complaining about your lifestyle. So on the surface, you know, he's appearing content, but he's deeply restless underneath. Thus, the wish fulfillment, the wish that's come true for him, is much emptier than it first appears to be. With the Nine of Pentacles, so here we see a crow that's living independently, seems to have a lot of freedom, seemingly autonomous, but his financial independence, all these pentacles over here, well, they've come with a lot of strings, guys, haven't they? The brand deals, the media exposure, the public airing of private wounds. And the lesson with this card is to stand independently with dignity and self-possession, not just financial security. So bringing it all together, Harry seems to live permanently in the world of the nines, that almost, let's just pop them out again a second. Just about got enough room on here. Yeah, the kind of never seem to settle into the new era of the tens. He never quite fully reaches that new stage. There's never any closure of these particular life lessons. There's no completion. He lives in the penultimate kind of stage of restless questioning and being unrooted and very isolated as well. So his life lessons here would include being able to turn his defensiveness into wisdom, transform it, yeah? And his battle scars of life need to be transformed much more into strength. He's in that perpetual fight always, and it's like he's always anticipating the attack, whether it's from press or family or the critics. And this lesson hasn't yet been completed, of how to stand strong without needing to fight everyone and everything. He seems to face his inner demons, but doesn't actually do anything with them. That inner journey that he needs to do of recalibration. You know, peace isn't just granted. It's not something that's just handed to you, or, you know, like external justice or gaining that revenge. That's not what's going to do it here. So the material wishes alone in the Nine of Cups, you know, that doesn't create wholeness for him, all those goodies. So each nine is actually asking him to step into mastery and transform those wounds into wisdom. Conquer the inner shadows through self-responsibility rather than running away, and find joy, you know, in what you do already have. Embody that independence as well. But it needs to be rooted in peace and not reaction. So Harry's other character card is the Moon card. And of course, this is a card of great emotion and intuition, huge imagination, also lies, fears and issues around your mother, or perhaps being a mother. It's a card of cycles and patterns repeating over and over in one's life. So often I would say Harry acts very much from his emotional core. His decision to leave the monarchy, write the book Spare, reflections of his mother constantly, all show the raw emotion in this card. And it shows how he sees the world, very emotionally, through the lens of very deep feeling. Yet his reflections on these matters can come across as quite distorted reflections in the moon energies, in those watery pools, like things aren't quite what they seem, as recollections may vary. The life lessons of the moon for Harry are to be able to distinguish the truth from illusion. The moon asks him to discern between what's genuine insight, what's pure intuition, away from what's paranoia and fear, and face honestly what rises from the depths of his unconscious self. So rather than repeating the endless cycles of retelling his traumas over and over, it's about trying to integrate what's gone before, not just re-expose it within the cycles, find clarity beyond emotion. Yes, using his intuition, but also grounding it with the hermit's wisdom, which is the opposite energy. So one, you're going along with the intuition, flowing with that water energy, and with the hermit's energy, you're actively pursuing wisdom by retreating. So the moon's energy kind of blurs the line for him between what feels true and what is actual true reality. This is the moon's energy, guys, at its worst. It's a kind of confusion, a confusion of personal pain with universal truth, and preaching it as gospel. So he lets his fears control him, the distorted mirror of his family, the distorted mirror of his memoir, and it's like he's kind of stuck on the moonlit road, never actually arriving anywhere towards wisdom, and mistaking moonlit shadows for clarity, but being lost in that twilight world where his wounds dictate his identity. So we see a crow here as well that's stuck in a cage, and in the Nine of Swords we also had a cage, 2 cages. And even though he has escaped to Montecito, he still carries that cage over his whole body. So his freedom's always kind of compromised, really, by his fixation on what he's left behind. So Harry needs the bars on the cage to keep his story alive. Yes, he was born into captivity of the monarchy, and he did escape to Montecito physically, but not psychologically. He's still rattling the bars of an illusionary prison. So the soul birth cards that he has, and he's very, very unusual here, guys. How many soul birth card readings have I done this year? Tons and tons. And this is the first, I think, that we come across where we have 3 cards as the soul birth cards. So Prince Harry's soul birth cards are like a roadmap of what he could actually be. So the Magician has all the potential in the world, all the tools on the table to create whatever he wants. There's endless possibilities here for him. And the Magician is also the Master Manifester, a card of great raw potential with every tool at his disposal. Money, influence, all access doors open, charisma. He could have been the bridge between tradition and modernity. He could have been a right royal force, couldn't he? For good. But he often misfires his energy and appears more like a snake oil salesman, or to some perhaps a double-tongued, silver-tongued liar. This is the shadow magician at work. It's not that he lacks power as such, but more like he misuses it. So the lesson here is your tools, because he's got everything there before him. Your tools are only as good as your discipline, your discernment, and of course your wisdom. So the Wheel of Fortune, again, we get another card of cycles, just like in the moon energy. And for Harry, it's been the merciless ups and downs of life. Harry's allowed himself to be tossed around on the wheel by circumstance. And, he often plays the victim to the wheel. So instead of being the rider of the wheel, riding life's ups and downs skillfully, he often frames his life as something that's happening to him rather than something that he can actually navigate. It's about taking the wheel by the hands and driving it where you want to go in life, not being at the mercy of it. And this is something, the wheel of life, that he was born to navigate, but instead he spins endlessly between resentment and reaction. And it's a story that is both very, very potent, but also I feel very sad and tragic as well. So the lesson of the wheel is to move from the edge into the very center there, because when we're at the center of the wheel, we're much more able to navigate life's ups and downs. There's a lot more grounding when you're in the center. And if he persists on the edge of the wheel, then he's not going to ever be able to fulfill the life lessons that he came here to learn, to take charge and point that wheel in a good direction, and use his energies, his privilege, his tools, all for the good. And there'll be no ultimate fulfillment either of the self. So the Sun energy, a beautiful card. I'd love to have this one in my soul card makeup. Along with the Star, it's the most positive card you could possibly have in the deck. So he was given a real gift here. He was a man that was born to shine and be successful. We've got the banner of success here. And he's kind of allowed his ego to overshadow the sun's brightness and light. He's unable to find joy in life, and he holds on to his fears, his grievances, and thus the gifts that he was given here are more like shackles for him. And, he's been wasting those life lessons over and over. So I feel quite sad, actually, because he had so much potential. He was dealt a good hand of cards with those soul cards. The moon, very tricky, so I'll give him that. Okay, let's get into some pendulum readings and some oracle cards and some charms. So I want to ask the pendulum whether Harry is actually happy in Montecito. It's right for a yes, left for a no, up and down for a maybe, stop for a block. Stop for a block means we're not allowed to know, guys. Okay, so here we go. Is Prince Harry happy in Montecito? All for entertainment purposes only. Is this reading? Everything in this reading for entertainment purposes. Is Prince Harry happy in Montecito? Yes or no, please, guides? Well, it went to a yes initially, and now it's gone to a no. So my feeling here is, because we have to notice every single nuance in the pendulum. So initially it would have had its moments of happiness, I would say, being in Montecito, but as of now, I would say it's more on the no. So my next question would have to be, are both Prince Harry's children his children by blood? Are they his blood children? Are they his blood children? And I get a very clear no for that one. All for entertainment purposes only. Okay, so will Prince Harry ever divorce? Will Prince Harry ever divorce? Will Prince Harry ever divorce? Oh, I got tingles in my fingers then. And that's a yes. And that concurs with many, many readings that I did on my last channel. Okay, let's go to the oracle. So this is the what's the vibe? What is wrong with my can't get my words out. What's the vibe, please? Can you give us a vibe on Prince Harry? Anything we need to know, guides? So I'm going to wait till I get a flyer. This can take a minute or so please bear with me. Can't be rushed, I'm afraid. What's the vibe? There we go. Flew out. So we're supposed to have this card. Spirit has to work very hard to make a flyer come out. And look at that. Amazing. Cutting ties, freedom, standing up and awaken. Okay. Right, we're next going to go into the charms. Okay, so I have a dice with lots of different numbers on it. I've got ye old coin. Is it like an old gypsy coin? Yes and no. So we'll have to think of a question for that one. I've got a bat and, blimey, an astronaut. Okay, well, let's start with the astronaut one. My feeling here is that, you know, he's been exploring a whole different cosmos, hasn't he? Out of the royal family and in Montecito, completely different than what he's been used to. And I'm thinking also that astronauts can experience loneliness and disconnection, sensory deprivation as well. And his space that he's in Montecito is liberating, but it's also very isolating, just like this astronaut. And I guess he's got a much more detached perspective compared to what he did have, compared to inside those palace walls now. Must look like a completely different world. Let's go for the bat next. I want to say batshit crazy. So bats navigate by echolocation, isn't it? So they put out sounds so that they can sense where they are in their environment. Those sounds that they put out come back as echoes. And I'm just thinking as well how he will say something in the media or the press, and then whatever comes back to him, whether it's critical or praising, normally it's critical, then that's how he kind of chooses to navigate forward. Let's go for the yes or no. Is he still in love with his wife, guys? Oh, let's do a bit higher than that. No! No! No. Oh my God. No. I didn't see that. Okay, and numbers then. Numbers. So we did get divorce. How long? 8. How long have they been married? Okay. But 8 is also a number that goes with the Magician card, limitless possibilities, endless potential to manifest. Interesting. Also a symbol of the lemniscape and reincarnation. All right. Let's leave it there. Make of that what you will. Drop your comments in the box below. I shall be reading them later. We'll cover the wife tomorrow, guys, and see how we get on with that one. If there's anybody else that you'd like me to cover, then please do get in touch. Pop those comments in. If anybody would like a private reading with me, my email address is in the description box. You have a blessed day. Fly well. See you tomorrow.